this was never on my radar as something that I remotely thought I could do or wanted to do. My goal was never, I didn't go to college to be an author. I had enjoyed at that point learning and teaching myself these things. So the whole self-publishing area was more interesting to me than landing an agent. Just start. Open that document and start.
This week's episode is brought to you by SaveAround. Okay folks, if you don't have a SaveAround coupon book, now is your time to get one. SaveAround is one of the nation's leading providers in coupon books with unique editions in over 160 markets across the US. Each book contains over $5,000 in savings from your favorite local, regional, and national merchants, and it also comes with 12 free months of complimentary access to their mobile app. Plus, the SaveAround books make great gifts. So, as a special thank you for being an American Real subscriber, we are able to offer you 25% off your next SaveAround purchase. So just visit SaveAround.com and enter the promo code American at checkout, and you will receive that offer. It's valid through the end of the year and cannot be combined with any other offers or discounts. So be sure to get your SaveAround book today. Our lives are often filled with worry and chaos as the media propagates one negative story after another, bringing divide and tension within topics such as politics, religion, and race relations. These stories fuel hatred and confusion while people continue to live in fear. Yet through all this negative energy, many are delivering messages of wisdom and hope, encouraging positive change, and that's something I'm aiming to do. My name is Roger Brooks, and I'm hopeful for our future, but we must be the change and not be a spectator in life, looking from the outside in. For as long as I could remember, I've been fascinated by people's stories. Stories speak to us, and since the beginning of time, the human race has prospered by passing down wisdom told through the essence of story. It's a way for people to aspire to become the hero they know they could be, seeing their higher self through the wisdom of others. What started out as a hobby has quickly turned into my life mission, and as I deliver a new guest each Sunday, I'll aim to prompt the questions you may be thinking, and through the power of listening, I'll allow the guest to speak and articulate their points of view in order to give you the headspace you need to realize your own hero's journey. We are one race. We are one people. Help spread the word about American Real, and together, let's make great stories go viral to inspire, enlighten, and empower those we love and the masses we hope to reach.
This is American Real. I am Roger Brooks. My guest today is Debbie Lum, a 5-time author of romantic suspense novels. You are an unlikely author, a non-reader who was inspired by a self-esteem ad campaign encouraging little girls to dream big. Your novels feature fun, flawed characters with steamy and complicated relationships. Your latest novel is I Can Handle Him, which we will discuss today. And Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here. And I guess the first thing I'm struck by is you're saying that you are not yourself a reader, but you're an author. And I'm pretty curious about that. If you don't mind starting there, how did this all begin for you?
Sure. It's a little bit of an accidental start, but I am not a reader. I haven't read a book in many, many, many years. I did recently read a particular trilogy that came out a few years ago that was erotica. Everyone knows what that one is. I had to pick that up because everybody else did. And I read that I had different reactions just like everybody does. But I guess that just started my mind thinking, what am I missing? Is this what I'm missing? And is this what books are like nowadays and whatnot? So a few years passed, and then I had an idea in my head. I spent a lot of time on the treadmill, just wandering with my mind and the music and that sort of thing. And I literally got off of the treadmill one day, walked to my laptop, opened it up, opened a blank Word document, and just started typing. And I don't know that I'd recommend that path because I had to do quite a bit to get to the point where I had a book, but that's where the purge started, the emotional purge and just the idea purge. And that's how it all started.
And how long ago was that?
That was December of 2012. So in my first book, I released 3 books in 1 year, and that was 4 years later. So it took quite a bit of time to figure out what I was doing. What I had started to do was just type. And I have a marketing background, and I have written before, but more for marketing and PR types of things, definitely not anything of the fiction realm. And especially anything like this where you have a thought in your imagination and you're letting it go. So anyway, it took me a while to figure out what I was doing. I wasn't really sure. I didn't open that laptop that day to write a book. I just was sort of like, let me just get this out. And I did type for about a month. And it was around January that I was getting like carpal tunnel. My arms were hurting because I was just going and going and going and going. And like I had mentioned to you, I literally Googled, what do you do if you think you wrote a book? And that's a thing on Google. Everything's a thing on Google, but all sorts of things came up on what to do, how to do it. And I started sort of immersing myself in now what? So I did this purge. I got this crazy idea out of my head. Now what?
So let's go back to the time where you were doing all this writing. It sounds like you were in a flow state.
I was total flow. Love the flow. Wish I could get back to the flow. That was of all of everything, that was the best time for me to just sort of release and go and go and go. That was just a wonderful time for me to get that all out, get those ideas out. Yes,
Sure.
Definitely a flow.
And looking back, do you feel like this story was in you somewhere and it came to be? Where do you think it came from?
I think it came from the music that I was listening to in my imagination. I don't think it was anything that was like harbored within me all of my life. I had this daydream or imagination or anything like that. I think it was just from listening to songs and just wondering what if. The premise of the first 3 books, it's a trilogy, and it's about a band, a rock and roll band that writes an anonymous movie soundtrack. And I guess I had just started thinking, wouldn't that be funny if you could be anonymous nowadays? Because nothing's anonymous anymore. And wouldn't that be amazing if there was a band that wrote a movie soundtrack, and part of the movie's mystique was, well, who's that band? And that movie soundtrack's so cool, and what would that be? So I sort of just explored that thing, and I had my music going, and it was just one thing that led to another on, okay, well, let's make that kind of dramatic, and let's have a love story, and let's do this, and let's do that, and just letting your mind wander.
That's so much fun. And I could only imagine how you must feel now that, that you've accomplished that, right? So at first it was just a thought,
Right.
And then you turn that thought into action. That's where your flow state was. And then
Correct.
you had this living material, right? That you put down on paper, and now you're saying, okay, how do I actually turn this into something that's
Right.
legitimate, if you will, right?
Because it's a little embarrassing. It's a little embarrassing because you have this thought that you had, this daydream. I'm not sure anyone doesn't daydream. I mean, does anyone take a really good song and not sing along with it and think they're on a band, being a rock band or something like that, just as an example? Or does anyone not imagine themselves in a situation? So in this case, I have an imagination that I've put into writing. So you're very vulnerable. And I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I didn't even know what genre I was in. I was like, what's a genre? What is all of this? And I had to figure out that I was writing romantic suspense, because it wasn't just a romance. There was some suspense in there. So I was so completely out of my world of anything that I had known. So I was exceptionally vulnerable. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I was keeping that very private. I just was chunking along and teaching myself and trying to figure out what I do while I'm writing, and I'm like working on my thing, but I kept it very, very private.
Yeah.
Which was a whole nother thing on how easy that was to keep something so private.
Easy in what way? Just because you were vulnerable, being it was your first book?
I think when I say it was easy, because of how I interact with my friends, my family, and I think how most people interact. And you say, hey, how you doing? What you been doing? Are you doing okay? Oh, I'm great. And that's that. And then we go on and have our dinner, or we have our thing. We don't ever kind of get into it. And I was able to just be like, oh, this is great, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. You just don't even have to tell anyone. And most people don't dig in. They don't really look at you and go, you're hiding something. That's not you. But I did have a few friends. There were two in particular that were like, we know you. There's no way you're just sitting around. What's going on? And why have you been so quiet? Or you've not been on Facebook a lot. What's going on? So it made me realize, what kind of friend am I? What am I not drawing out of my friends through that experience where I was keeping this sort of journey of mine a secret? Is somebody sick and I'm not taking the time to kind of read their eyes and understand? Are there problems that I could help with? Am I really listening to my friends? Because there was a lot that I was just like leaving right there for anyone to dig in and find, but I wasn't opening up about it. So
isn't that incredible?
It was sort of a soul searching thing where I'm holding a secret, and what are you holding?
Right. So a life lesson came out of this, right?
Absolutely a big life lesson for me on how attentive am I to my friends.
Sure. Have you been more aware now in that regard since this experience?
Absolutely. I absolutely am more aware of my friends, and I'm also more aware when I don't see friends that are active on social media. All of a sudden they're not active, and I might send them a message, or I might ask another friend, hey, have you heard from so-and-so in a while? Because I know what I did, I sort of pulled back. So yeah, there is a little bit of a life lesson there, in that I am a little bit more aware, especially if someone goes missing for a while, or their posts are not as fun as they used to be, or something like that. I definitely think I have tuned in more on that.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So you write the book, and now you're trying to put it into a format, where you could actually have people take a look at it? What happened at that stage?
Correct. Well, I figured out what I had was a manuscript. I know that sounds very basic to some people, and they're probably laughing, well, of course you had a manuscript. I didn't know, okay, how do books get born? I did not know these things. And I had a manuscript, and the idea is that you get people to read that manuscript. So I also was learning I recognize my vulnerabilities in that I don't know what I'm doing. And I did read a lot about how to get help, particularly an editor. And that seemed like something I could not live without. I did understand my limitations, and I might think the sky's the limit, but I don't know what I'm doing and I need professional help. So I did seek out an editor to give me that. But yeah, you have this manuscript and now you're like, now it's time to give it to someone. And I had assembled, now I have assembled, but in the beginning I was trying to figure out the friends that I wanted to tell and, just where am I comfortable? Where's my comfort zone? Someone's going to laugh at me. So who is it going to hurt the least? The first one that laughs at you. And I had printed out my manuscript in a 3-ring binder. And I had told a friend what I was doing. We had talked about it. And I gave it to her to read for the very first time. And we had gone to dinner together. And I gave her the book at the end of dinner. And when she drove away with that binder, that was the moment where it's gone. It's someone else is in on it now. Here I go. And talk about, you're just, you want to run after it at that point. Just like, wait, maybe I'm not done yet. Maybe give me another year and I'll look at it again. But that was the start of sending out my manuscripts to an editor or to friends, or that final time when you hit that button and you publish.
Yeah. And I'm sure you felt so relieved in some ways though, right? Because you held on to it for so long and then you let it go.
Yes.
But you could probably have that breath of fresh air to say, okay.
Absolutely. You have that breath of fresh air and that it's finally gone. And now is this the moment where I'll get some validation? Does she like it? Did she think it stinks? What is this? And especially from where I was coming from and that I don't read books. So I was like, am I in the zone? And, is this what you're reading? Does this sound like something you've read before? For all I knew, there was a book out there that had the exact same premise, the exact same concept. I did not know. So, yeah, that's exactly what you're just sort of, it's very, yay, it's out there, but you're also just like, okay, now, now what? What did you think?
And what was her feedback?
That's, of course, what did she think? She liked it. She liked it a lot. There was one particular thing she was just, I do not like this particular part. And her reaction to it was so, wow, out of all of this, it was a 90,000 word manuscript at that point. Out of all of this, you're zooming in on this one thing. I did end up cutting that in the end. I cut a lot in the end. That's a whole nother story. But that was my first experience with how a reader interprets a book. And you may have a passage in there that doesn't mean anything to anyone else or is not as significant to you, but somebody else just has a completely different feeling. Cheating is a great example. How if you have, is anything in your book related to cheating, someone who's been cheated on has a much different reaction to that than someone who hasn't. And you can go through the gamut of life experiences that you might throw into a book. And that was the beginning of a very fascinating thing to me, very interesting thing to me, is how people interpret a book. Because one thing that is benign to someone else is just horribly painful to somebody else. So it's fascinating as an author to put those probes out there, and then you just sort of, what did I touch? Who did I touch? Did it hurt? Were you happy?
Right.
Fascinating.
Wow. Okay. So after the first friend read the book, then what? Then you sent it to several other people in a professional editor?
Well, I did find an editor, and I sent the first 50 pages for a manuscript review, because I had read, the Googles told me that, and the things that I had read, this is a good thing to do and sort of test it. So I did. Big moment there in finding a professional to read that. And I got her feedback, and her feedback was very good. And I was very relieved, because it's one thing to give your book to a friend who reads a lot, but then also to give it to an editor who obviously knows their business. And very good feedback. Excellent feedback. I felt very grounded, very positive, but she had one thing she recommended, and that she thought the whole manuscript, the part that she read would be much stronger if instead of first person, it was third person. And
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
When she said that, it actually, first I was like, well, okay, well, all right. but it was a little bit of a relief to me because I did feel that in first person, I was getting close to the main character a little too much. And as an author, you look around for everything and you are inspired by everything. And there's things that you're looking for, especially when you're picking character attributes and things like that. And I would find myself in the mall looking at clothes, which I still do now for a character, and be like, that's perfect for him. That's perfect for this. This is exactly the shoe she'd wear, whatever. But I was finding the clothes, it was getting a little too close in first person. So when she said that, the magnitude of rewriting a 90,000 word manuscript, it was overwhelming. And I thought, well, that was good. This was a great exercise, but nobody knows I'm working on this. So, maybe I just, okay, whatever, next time, whatever. But I didn't quit. I went ahead and I rewrote the whole dang thing.
Wow.
And instead of trying to go in and change just the simple things, I knew I'd missed something. So I literally rewrote the whole thing. I had one computer screen with the original manuscript and a fresh one, and I just rewrote the whole thing. And I found a different editor. I had liked that first one, but I had found another one that works more in this genre. And by the time I found her and sent the full manuscript to her, she's now my editor for life. I clicked with her in a way that was just fantastic. And she's led me to be what I am now, and how things that were hard for me before are now easier because of her instruction and her corrections.
I see. So how long did it take you to do the rewrite?
Took me about 2 months, which it was fast.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to beat it. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to just dig in and do this. And by then I was on such a personal mission that I was like, come on, do this and see what it is. I also liked it better. And I was in, like you said, the flow. I love your analogy of the flow. I was in the flow. So I just liked it better. So it was motivating me to go more, go faster, keep going.
I see. So, okay. So now your first book is done. How long from that point does it take to get it actually published? Are you sending it out to all kinds of publishers?
Right. That's what you're supposed to do. What you're supposed to do, evidently, what you're supposed to do is send query letters out and get an agent. That's what you're supposed to do, is get an agent, which would be lovely. And so I knew what I was supposed to do, and I had my spreadsheet, and you're supposed to send out 10 a week is what these blogs say, and all these great things that I was trying to read and learn. And I sent out five total, and I stopped. And a lot of the agents on their sites, when you're reading about them, they say they'll get back to you in 6 to 8 weeks if they want more than just the samples, and you got to give them specifically what they wanted. And I was just like, stop. My goal was never, I didn't go to college to be an author. I hadn't invested in an education to get to a goal that an agent I would need to get me to that goal. I'm on a personal journey. I had enjoyed that point, learning and teaching myself these things. So the whole self-publishing area was more interesting to me than landing an agent. Now, I have no doubt if I had landed an agent, I'm sure other doors would have opened that I don't even know yet what those doors are. I'm sure that would have been lovely. But I really enjoyed that journey of, okay, so if I do it myself, here's how this is, and here's how this, I keep all the money. Okay. And I pick the book cover designer, and if I don't like it, I change it. And if I want to keep this paragraph in, I keep it in. And I started to like that vibe a little bit more, especially for what I was doing, just trying to teach myself something new. So I headed down the path of self-publishing.
I see. And because of your marketing background, I'm sure that really played a big part of that decision, right?
Yes. That was very interesting to me to try to, let me teach myself something new in that realm of marketing. I felt like, well, that's more my arena is marketing. Now I'm just like, wow, now that I've done 5 books, I'm like, wow, marketing a book is so different than what I was doing before. I'm not in my arena. But I did feel at that time very comfortable doing that and thinking, okay, this is probably something I would prefer to do. And so I started down that path. And with it comes a little bit more responsibility. I think one of the things in self-publishing that gets dinged a lot is that there's a lot of books out there that haven't been vetted properly, that haven't been edited professionally, that may have been rushed to print, because you can put a book together quickly and print it very quickly, especially an ebook. That can be done. You can have your manuscript, and now the software is right there with Amazon and these other platforms, and they will, churn that book into an ebook in a matter of an hour. So I took the time, though, to vet my book and get that professionally edited, and also to run it by my now squad of beta readers. Now I have a team that I bring them in at different levels, and all of them have different things that they critique, and they have different value to me at different times. I take my time to get that book vetted. I want it to be plausible. It's fiction, but I do want it to be plausible. And I don't want to have any spelling errors. I don't want to have anything that's just complete thoughts that were just left behind. And I want all the threads to make sense. So I take that time to do that.
That's phenomenal. That's really incredible. So I'm curious, once you get your first book out, do you stick with the self-publishing route? Is that what you're still doing today?
It is. I still self-publish today through all 5 books. I've never tried to seek out an agent. I was never rejected. That's a good thing I can say. I was never rejected because I stopped by the 5th one. But yes, I didn't even think to seek out an agent or a publisher. I had everything set up. I have everything set up, and I'm pleased with how I have that control. So that's the way that I kept going.
And a lot of people talk about how the whole publishing industry has changed dramatically since the internet. And it sounds like you've really experienced this firsthand, and are an advocate of self-publishing, and it's worked for you, right?
It has. I just experienced something firsthand with a book festival in April that I was at. I'm a self-published author, so I couldn't be admitted as an author in this book fair, and I could be an exhibitor, which was fine. And whenever I've done book signings before or had tables, that's where the fun stuff is, because you interact with people. I just love that. I was great. So I was an exhibitor, and I was next to a small publisher and a small print house. And it was a very interesting day because I observed what they did and saw them in action. They had several clients that they represented, and they brought about 2 or 3 books for each of their clients and had them on display. And so they are trying to sell, if I was one of their clients, they'd be trying to sell 2 or 3 of my books. And I know they had them because I heard their inventory in the morning when they were going over it. I had my booth, my table. Now it's my overhead to pay that fee to be there. But I interacted with so many people. It was a just crazy day. I had brought 35 books, sold them out of just the new book. I'm selling my other books too. And they came over to my booth toward the end of the day, and they were asking me how it was going. And I was blown away. If I had sold 5 books, I would have been thrilled, and to have gotten rid of my whole inventory. But it made me realize I would not have had that kind of day, and nor will I have sold that many books if I was maybe with a house. So, I'm sure it's a trade-off, and I'm sure I'm not meaning to say the people that are part of small publishing houses aren't enjoying success, because I'm sure many of them have higher selling novels than I do. But for me, that joy in interacting with those people and being able to set up my own table and have my own stuff, that was so thrilling to me. So for me, it's working. For me, it's a good fit. And, I'm having fun with that type of thing.
Yeah, and it sounds like you really found your niche here, right? And that you're into it. Like I could see some people, I know of people who have done self-publishing, but they published it, they put it out there, but they didn't really market it. They're not going to fairs, they're not promoting it. So they're expecting, the book just to sell itself. And I could sense that you're taking this very, very serious. And because of that, it looks like you're getting some good return on your own personal investment.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm getting a good personal return, and that I'm having fun. I'm having a good time with this. But if you're going to work on something like a book, especially something that's personal, it's an idea you have and you've birthed it into this book. If you can't see it all the way through, then it really just becomes an exercise where you published it, and then it lives there, but people aren't enjoying your story. So you do have to work at that. And I'm sure even in the world of marketing, there's so much I don't know. And I'm sure I'm not doing things right. I'm sure I could be doing things a lot better. I definitely know I could be doing more. So it's every day I'm teaching myself something else, and oh my word, I didn't even realize I could do that on this platform. And I feel like I'm behind so far, but when I look back and think I just started, then I don't feel that I'm so far behind.
Yeah. No, that's great. Sounds very rewarding. So it's been what, 5 years since?
Yeah, I mean,
5 or 6 years.
December of 2012 is when I opened that document, but really 2013 is when I was working on it the most. So yeah.
And so on average, you put out one book a year.
I know, isn't that crazy?
That's incredible.
It is. It's crazy how it's just been coming and coming and coming. And now that I have my systems down, and now that I've figured out what I do when I have an idea is I just get a spiral notebook, the kind that are on sale now at the back to school sales. Right. And I just start writing everything in a spiral notebook. That way you have all your notes in one place. And now that I have like my little systems in place like that, I find that when I have an idea, it just comes together a little faster because I know my systems. I know kind of what to do and how fast this should be. I also have understood, and I'm respectful for how much time it takes. It takes a lot of time to get a book out. Even though you're giving me a lot of credit for doing a book a year, there's a lot of time that goes into that. So when I was releasing my book in 2017, The Doctor, the Chef, or the Fireman, I already had this idea for I can handle him in the back of my mind. So that book was out, and I'm in my scribble book on a plane kind of sketching out the next book, and I'm doing research and starting those things to roll, because it does take a lot of time to research and then get that writing done. And then what takes a lot of time also is engaging your beta readers to read it. Because if you're one of my beta readers and I give you a 60,000 page manuscript and you're a father of two and you're working your job, you're not necessarily giving me that feedback next week, so I have to be very patient with that process, and it just takes a lot of time to do it the way I'm doing it, to do it, where you're really letting it, making sure there's no errors.
Sure. No, and it sounds like that, like anything, you're perfecting your craft. You've been doing it now. You're into a rhythm. You're into a groove. You're getting better at it each time. So I'm sure that helps things go a little bit quicker. But you're saying even though you've figured some of these systems out, it's still not something that you could turn around in a couple of months. It's a lot of work that goes into writing a book, and then the process of actually getting it completed and out there.
Yes. For me, even though it sounds like I'm turning them out very fast, very prolifically, it does still take time to really vet it. The research is another thing that I was surprised how much I liked it, because I've not really been a big student of research and study, and let me just dig into those facts, those enjoyable facts. But when I would imagine a crime and it's like, how would that happen? And how would that work? And you start, researching things on the internet. You find a friend who may have not committed that crime, but you find someone who has experience, and I can handle them. There's a lot of mischief with cars. There's a lot of bad things that happen with cars. So I had to research a lot about cars and how does that work. And I loved that part. And even down to the detail of, does a Ferrari have a key or does it have a fob? I did not know. And, there's details like that if you're a Ferrari owner and you're reading this, you're just like, gosh, everybody knows it's this card now. It's not, or whatever.
Right.
I want to be so authentic with that and so plausible that every detail like that has to be researched. But I loved that part. I love that part now, where you just take an idea and then, especially I have a friend who works in law enforcement, and whenever I engage her, she's like, oh boy, what are we doing now? I'm like, well, need to poison a town. And so here's how I was going to do it. And here's what I figured out. And so I've researched this. And if it doesn't rain for a while, it'd be like this. And all of those things, is this plausible? And let me look at that. And, I love that, where you can say, am I good? Can I kill the townspeople now? It's like, that to me is so much fun.
It sounds like it. It sounds like a blast. That's great. So what are some of your favorite parts about, about being an author, about becoming an author?
I would say when somebody says they loved your book, when someone says, I absolutely loved it. And then if I'm able to engage with that reader and say, well, what or why or who in the book did you like? And if I can get that feedback from someone, that is amazing, where that was just something in my head and somehow it gave you a moment in your day of pleasure or laughter, or you tripped down memory lane because of this scene that I wrote, and that gave you some pleasure or that gave you some memory. That is powerful. And it came from my head into some words, and that evoked something from you. That is cool and very, very powerful. So by far, that is the biggest payoff that you can do, is when you have a reaction from someone that they enjoyed it.
That's awesome. That is great.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about patience earlier, and the need to be patient for the book to really come to life, not to rush it. I
Correct.
think a lot of authors, myself included, always wanted to rush things, where if
you're excited. Yeah.
Right. Sure. That's
Let's
natural, normal. But
Right.
I think the experienced author knows that you need to be patient, and has, over time, over these last 5 or 6 years, how has the patience part resolved within yourself? Are you getting better at that?
I am not getting better at that. I am understanding more. I would say, if anything, I'm getting better at understanding that if I give a manuscript to a friend to read, they have a life. So I get it more, but absolutely, I'm like you said, I'm ready to go. It's like, okay, I think this is great. So let's spin this around and let's make sure we're good and let's go. So if I had my way, I would do it faster. But I also know there's a lot of risk if you go faster. So it's better to minimize that risk and take your time. But by nature, I'm not a patient person. I also think that might be why chronically inside me, I don't read, because I'm not a patient person. And I can remember in college reading and whatnot, that I would be like, no, this doesn't make sense, or hurry it along. Okay. I also don't go to movies a lot, because I'm the one that's just like, ugh, come on. It's like, all right, we've had 5 fight scenes, we're good. Whereas watching things at home, I can get up and storm to the kitchen and wait for that, big, long battle scene to finish. So I'm not patient. So this is a hard thing for me to learn, but I know the value is to put the best product out there I have to be patient, and I need to be patient. So that is why I am patient with that.
Okay, neat. Very neat.
Yeah.
So, did you leave your career behind for writing? Are you
No, I had left my career behind for my husband. We
okay?
had moved. He had an incredible job opportunity, and so we moved. And we had decided it was more important for me to get the kids settled. Kids were in high school by that point, but to get the kids settled. And so I left my career behind. So I wasn't really looking for a new career. I had my plate full, just in a new town, no one that I knew, getting high school kids settled. That's hard to introduce. You're like, I'm the new band mom. Hi.
Right.
But everyone's been together since middle school and whatnot. So I wasn't looking for a new career. I wasn't looking for something to do when all of this happened. It turns out now, if you can look back, that was the perfect time for me to do that. So either that was divine intervention or something inside me drove me that day to that laptop to open that up. But I was not looking for that to be a career or a new path. This was never on my radar as something that I remotely thought I could do or wanted to do. So, yet here I am.
That's awesome. So, what does your family think about all this? Your
Well,
kids?
they didn't know actually in the beginning when I was in that flow mode that we were talking about. One of my sons had said, "Mom, what are you working on?" Because I actually had moved my laptop from my den in the evening. I moved it to the dining room table so I could be present with the family while they're watching TV. But I was going at it and going at it. So one of them finally said, "Mom, what are you working on?" I said, "I think I wrote a book. I think I'm working on something." So I think largely no one really kind of took it seriously and just, okay, mom's got something she's working on. And as I was sort of moving along here, I think my friends took it a little more as I was gradually telling people about it. They were like, perfect for you. This is good. I can't wait. What's it about? A little more engaging than my family was, because this was so out of the box for them. But now all of them have joined me at either a book signing or at a TV interview or something. All of them have at one point, because we're spread across 3 states now. So all of them at some point have joined me for something, and that's been fun to have them at my side for this, where it's like, now here it is, and I'm signing it, and look, that's your friend buying it. They just bought this book, so that finally they were involved with it.
That's great. So tell us about this self-esteem ad that you came.
Yes, that was, I don't know if I can say the brand or not, but that was Dove soap. This was a few years ago. Dove had a campaign about little girls, and little girls can do anything they want. Little girls can dream big, and it was obviously trying to sell Dove soap, but it was about self-esteem. And it just struck a chord with me. I agreed with the message completely, but the chord that struck with me is, well, why not a grown woman? And as a little girl, we are encouraging, as we should, be a scientist, be a teacher, be whatever you want to be. Try it all when you're young. But then when you get older, you don't have, it seems to me, that ramp up time for failure to learn. And I'm a perfect example of this with the book. When you publish that book, it's like, oh, it's a 50-year-old author. They should know what they're doing. And I don't know what I'm doing. So, but if I was a 14-year-old girl, maybe, are you more forgiving, as you should be, because she's 14 years old. But what's wrong with a woman in her 50s saying, hey, I think I use this as an example. I'm a banker, but now I want to be a food blogger. So, okay, do it, go ahead and do something different. And it seems like we encourage little girls to try everything, but does that stop? When does that stop? Why does it have to stop? Why can't a woman figure out something that she wants to do new when she's older?
Yeah, no, I love that. And actually, my sister, who just turned 50 last year, she was in an interior designer for most of her career. And at some point, she said, I want to become an art therapist.
An
And
art therapist?
an art therapist. So she's really good in art and she really enjoys helping people, and that's where the therapy comes along. But it was a long program. She had to get her master's and go back to school. And, this was 5-6 years ago, but she just completed it. She just, received her master's. She accepted her first job. But to your point, it's never too late. If whether you're 50 or 15 or somewhere in the middle, it's okay. And I think it's great that you did that. And it's great that you saw that commercial and that commercial gave you inspiration.
It spoke to me, a commercial aimed for, I guess, mothers to encourage their kids to do whatever.
Right.
It spoke to me to, well, okay, maybe I can teach myself something new. Maybe I can try something new. And people might laugh. People might be critical. People might not like it. But if I'm on my journey, what's the value to me for those things? Let me just get this journey going. Let me just figure this out,
So what is your source of inspiration?
I'm even looking in the background of your picture for inspiration. I look everywhere, and it's amazing the tidbits that you can pick up from people that inspire you. Now, as an author, I'm looking particularly for character attributes. I'm always looking for, a character that's funny, or, oh, I didn't think about this, or but what if we had a character that was like this? So I'm looking at my friends. I'm looking at their Facebook feeds, and especially when I'm in the zone and writing, with the first 3 books that I had written, I definitely needed a character attribute for the main character. She just didn't have a hobby. She's not the hobby type, but I needed a hobby. And somebody just happened to post that they had done a road race. And I was like, running, perfect. That can be a nice attribute. So I'm constantly looking around for ideas, for scenes, for feels. When you see happy people, when you see sad people, when you see how a policeman might park in the parking lot, it's like, okay. Everywhere, it's filling my brain all the time for ideas and scenes and people and expressions like yours right now. Something very happy. It's like I just love that, and I feed off of that so much now. I guess it was around me all along. Is an inspiration around all of us all the time. But now as a writer, I'm collecting it differently. Mm-hmm. I'm gathering it differently, and I'm holding it in me differently, just waiting. I'm just waiting to let it out in the next book or the next scene or the next, chapter.
That's really cool. And I also think about awareness as you're talking, just having that awareness. Sounds like you're, being very present all the time. And that's something in American Real we're trying to help people do in general, is become more present with whomever they're with at the moment. Don't be distracted by your phones, or, if you're out to lunch with someone, look at them. Speak to them. We talk to our kids about this too.
Right.
It's we kind of laugh about it, but I'm now more aware of my surroundings, but I also notice that most people are not. They're elsewhere.
They're elsewhere. Yeah, it is. I'm sure a lot of people are studying what's happening now with this, that you see. Yes. I travel a lot, and airports, it's everywhere, but airports is where nobody wants to look at anybody anymore, and they're all down with their phone. I never take out my phone. Rarely do I take out my phone. I'm looking at people, and I'm just watching people, and it's another thing on airplanes. That's where I do most of my conceptualizing because I don't read, and I'm not going to sit and play with a game. I stare out the window and look at this beautiful world we live in, and my mind just goes. And that's where I do a lot of my churning and tumbling of ideas. But if you are into other people's lives that much, then are you living your own? I don't know. I mean, I am active on social media. I do think there's a lot of good value that can be done with social media. But like you said, the whole purpose of what you're doing is to get people in the present, get them in your life today, live your life today.
Right. That's right. That's right. So important.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your new book, if we can.
Sure.
And the title, I Can Handle Him. So it's a great title. Where did that come from?
I don't know what the moment was where I thought of that. There was just a moment where I was, the dynamic is that there's two best friends and they're coming back, ironically, to San Antonio, where I am now. They come back to San Antonio. One's still in law school and one's just graduated with her master's, but they're sort of reuniting. And there's a man who is trouble. But they've never seen him as trouble, but he's had a lot of trouble. And so they are trying to set out to prove he's not so much trouble. And there's a lot of people in town that think things are his fault and blame him for certain things. And I think just in the course of doing that scenario, the I Can Handle Him came out because here's two young women that, of course, we got this. We can handle him. This is not an issue at all. So when I got that title, because I don't read, I don't know, there might have been a bestseller last year called I Can Handle. So of course I have to go on Amazon. I always run my titles through, book places just to see, does this book exist? And I was surprised I Can Handle Him wasn't a title that hadn't been used before. So it's like, this is the perfect title for a book because it does evoke, really, you think you can handle him? And the feedback I've gotten from guys is, right, you can handle, right, this is going to be interesting, right, you can handle him. What's so hard about handling him? So it's such a fun title because it evokes such a response quickly from people, and hopefully invites you into, well, what's so difficult for him that you might need to say you can handle him, draw you into that story. So
fantastic. And how long has the book, when did it come out?
I launched it in April of this year. So it's been out about, 5 months now?
Great.
So it's pretty new.
And how's it going so far?
What's that?
How's it going so far?
Oh, it's been going good. I mean, the response that I have gotten has been fantastic. With all of my books, I have never gotten the level of reviews and responses that I've gotten. I definitely, when I'm at a book signing or a book fair, you sell a lot more books than you do with a trickle that you do online because it is a very crowded book market.
Sure.
But I have never, I'm a little stunned right now with how many reviews that it's gotten. And when I first had set out and was reading about this world of being an author, I had seen some of the publications that you should try to get in. And I just thought, I'll never get in them. And two of them I got in. One is Booklist magazine, which is the American Library Association's magazine. And I Can Handle Him was featured in there as one of the reviews that they had pulled. And Kirkus Reviews magazines also profiled I Can Handle Him. And that is a milestone for someone like me because that's something that was just so far down the list of, that's the big boys. The big boys get in that magazine, not a small little person like me. So that has been overwhelming that there's been such good response to that. And also this blog tour that we've had, it has been overwhelmingly good reviews. And I just keep going, wow, this is happening. People like it. And that's so satisfying to me.
I'm sure. And congratulations. That's wonderful that it's having the success, and I wish you the best success with this book and others. So I'm sure you're now working on your next book, if I were to guess. Is that right?
There's ideas. Yes, there's always ideas. I'm always looking. So yes, there's never a lack of ideas. So
that's great.
I'm not sure I can turn it off now. Now that I've turned it on, I'm not sure when this stops,
Well, hopefully it doesn't, and that it just continues to grow for you, and that you continue to inspire others and inspire readers. Because that's what I think that's what we're here to do in general in life, is to help each other. So, but let's talk real quick about your genre, which is romantic suspense.
Sure.
Why that genre? What
Yeah.
attracted you to that?
Well, like I had said, I did not know what I was writing. Didn't know I was writing a book. Didn't know what genre I was in. But when I researched what my subject was, it was romantic suspense. I think that's just of interest to me. Romance is interesting, but I like that little mystery. I like that little bit of a whodunit in there. But yet, I don't think, me personally, I'm so much a mystery suspense person. So, wow, romantic suspense is fantastic, because it has that little bit of intrigue in there. But as is romance, one of the rules is you're supposed to have a happily ever after. So all of my books do have happily ever afters. Now, they might not be the happily ever after you wanted, but someone does live happily ever after. So there may be twists and turns along the way that get them, but the characters have happily ever afters. So that just seemed to be something that was comfortable for me. And like I said, with the research part of that, I just really enjoyed diving into some of those, what would you do if, and some of those sort of crime scenes and things like that. That just was of interest to me. But yet, absolutely, the arc of the book is a romance. Yeah, it's a fun genre.
Yes. So what are you most proud of, Debbie?
I would say that I did this. 5 books from someone who still has not read a book in the last, at least, well, I've read the 3 in the last 25 years. That's huge. And I still look at my bookshelf sometimes and think, wow, that came from me. But one of the things I really, really enjoy hearing in the feedback and the reviews is when people say it was an easy read and they say it was quick. I love that, because that's how my brain works. And that might also be a reason why I don't read a lot, is if I have to have a dictionary by me to understand a word, what's the point? If I don't get it, if it's the words are just too over my head. I'm just a simple person, and that's in my writing is very simple. And when I see people say quick, easy read, or I read it in a night, or read it over the weekend, that to me it just makes me so happy. And especially when I hear someone say, and usually it's friends, I haven't read a book in years, but I read yours and I got through them and I loved them. That is huge, because that's me. I haven't read a book. And when you hear that somebody entered your book and because it was easy to read, they got through it. That to me is what I'm most proud of. It really is.
That's phenomenal. For the aspiring writers out there, what words of advice would you have for them?
Well, a lot. Google's great. Google's awesome. It's going to be some work to do it right. And I had a friend advise me early on, what are you trying to do? And are you trying to put your best foot forward? If you're trying to put your best foot forward, then it's probably going to take some work. So if someone out there is like, I've really always wanted to write a book, just start. Open that document and start. And it may be wrong. You may have to change it from, first person to third person and do a little extra. But it's going to take some time to get it right if you're interested in best foot forward. And I think all of us in life are interested in best foot forward. We want to do the best in our jobs. We want to do the best with our families. If you're trying to take this up as a hobby, or if you want to take this up as a career, just know it will take some work. But if you really want to put your best foot forward, you can do it. You absolutely can do it. The resources are right there. It's like a carpet. they're right there, but it does take time to figure it out. You can't just, I have seen someone on blogs, you see this a lot on different blogs. Someone's like, oh, I have an idea in my head, so what should I do? They just start with a question like that, and it's like, there's so many things to do before you even ask that question. Just don't ask that question. Just start to, on your own, figure that out, and then people can help you along the way. But it's like, wow, that's a big question. What do? You just start. That's what you do. You start.
I love it. That's great. Well, we have a lot in common. I didn't want to bring this up in the beginning, but I'm glad that you've really inspired me today, and I'm glad that we've had the chance to meet and talk. I've actually been writing a novel for the last 7 years. So right about the time you started in 2012, that's when I started my novel, and it's coming to an end. So I'm really excited about it. But there's a lot of similar.
What's your genre?
It is historical fiction.
Okay.
And with some mystery, and received my inspiration from Dan Brown from the Da Vinci Code.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And
you get yours from that author, and I get mine from 50 Shades.
There you go. That's right. But to each his own, right? That's fine. So, but a lot of the things you talked about today is so relevant to what I've been through over these last 7 years. The patience, the research, believing in yourself and just doing it. I mean, and it's hard work, like you said. It's hard work.
Very hard.
But to your point, what you just said at the end, you can do it. Anyone can do this if they really put their mind to it.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely. But I am so thrilled to hear that you've worked that long on it. Now, have you invited anybody in to read it yet?
I have, and I actually get the chills when you talked about it, because I just did that about 2 months ago. And I gave my book to about 5 people to read. And put it in a binder like you did.
Oh yes. Oh, you got a fancy binder. I just had a 3-ring binder with a 3-hole punch.
But to your point, when you let that go, it's like letting your kid go off to college.
Absolutely. It's very unnerving. It's very exposing. It's personal. It's personal, and you have just left yourself very vulnerable. And who in this world wants to be vulnerable? It's a very brave step that you take when you invite, even if it's trusted friends, because you wouldn't have asked them to do that if you didn't want their feedback. And they're going to give you feedback.
Right.
And you just sort of like, here you go, and please, I hope you like it. And it's a very vulnerable thing. It's a big step to take. And it is, I'm glad that you are getting to the point where you feel you can let people in, because that's hard to do.
Yes. And I've actually had the, privilege to work with a professional writing coach as well for the last 5 years. So he's taught me a lot in this time. And of course, he doesn't do any of the writing itself, but he gives a lot of advice on how to mold the story and things like that. But so I felt somewhat good, but still, even though I had that coaching, there's still that vulnerability. But it's a good step. Now that I've done that, now I know I could take it to the next step, which, it was great to hear you talk about that too, because it's just part of the process.
Correct.
And
correct. What might your next step be?
Well, so I'm actually...
The table's turning now. Now let's see who can interview who.
That's right. So actually, I'm going to a retreat for 1 week in October in France, away from everything, and with my writing coach and his wife and my wife and a couple of other writers, and we will just work on the final touches, and then and he has a few things up his sleeve, so then we'll see the process. But we are going to try the traditional route. We have a lot of ideas there. He has some history with several publishers, so we'll go that route and see what happens.
When you look at agents and what they're looking for, historical fiction is almost always on their docket of what they're looking for. So with a traditional agent, it's all about having something that they are wanting to represent, that they are needing to represent. They may already have 4 or 5 romance, people. That's why so many get rejected. They can't pitch romance anymore because they're already representing 4 or 5.
I see.
So historical fiction is something I see a lot that they're looking for.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, hopefully that brings you some success.
Yeah.
What kind of history? What years? What centuries? What?
It's modern day.
Okay.
However, it goes back from the Middle Ages through the Renaissance. So there's been a lot of research. There's religion involved as well, and
Fascinating.
yeah, and it's a story that came to me when my wife and I went on vacation in Italy, and I had somewhat of an experience in Assisi, Italy, and then it just all started flowing.
But it's fiction.
But it's fiction. Yes, it is.
And see, once you turn that on, it's so hard to turn it off. It's so hard the brain just starts going and you're thinking, and it's fun. Hopefully you've had fun with it.
Oh, so much fun. And it continues. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, hope you have good luck with that too.
Thank you. So where can people find your books?
My books are available wherever books are sold. You can order them at Barnes & Noble if you're in the stores. You can order them on Amazon, the paperback, or you can get them eBook on Barnes & Noble, also Amazon, Smashwords, iBooks, Google Play, Kobo, all the big ones have the eBooks for all of my books are available.
Great. Well, we'll post the links as well when we publish the episode. And Debbie, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on American Real.
Thank you for picking me, because when I was looking on your site, I was like, wow, there's like people that are super compelling. And I was wondering, why me? I'm sure you get pitched to cover people. So I was very humbled by that.
Yeah, no, and look, we look for the interesting stories. You have a good story within yourself, and watching some of your videos and your authenticity and how you're not a reader but you're a writer. I mean, that's very intriguing to me, and I think it'll be intriguing to our viewers. And what I really like is I think your story will give inspiration to people that may have had this in the back of their mind. Maybe I could write a book, or maybe it's not even a book. Maybe they want to do something else.
Yes.
Maybe they want to become, a dancer, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, the food blogger is the easiest example I do give people, because I hear that a lot. But I have had friends reach out to me and say, hey, I've had this idea in my head, so what do I do? And I walk them through what I've done. And then I bug them about it later. So how's that idea? Have you started to put it down yet? Trying to follow up with them. But it is amazing how many people have thought to do that. But I think the perception is it's out of reach. It's something I can't do. And, I did it not knowing what I was doing. So someone who may actually be a reader might do even better.
Yeah, you're living proof. You're living proof, which is great. So before we let you go, I have one last question, if you don't mind. And I ask every guest this. What is it? What do you want your legacy to be?
Wow, the toughest question at the end. That's almost just like the most brutal of all. I would love my legacy to be that, yikes, this is a stumper. That I was organized, I knew what I wanted, and I did it.
Awesome.
That'd be cool. Is that good enough for a headstone? That's pretty succinct.
I think it works. Debbie, thank you so much. Welcome to the American Real family, and best of luck to you in your career, and all success to you.
Thank you. And you too. I followed you now on Twitter, so I want to see some book news here pretty soon.
Awesome. It'll be there.
Okay,
Thanks
good.
so much.
Good. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning into American Real. Be sure to visit our website, americanreal.tv, or search for us on iTunes or YouTube for past episodes. While you're there, please rate us or leave us a review. You can also connect with me directly on Instagram or Facebook, or by emailing roger@americanreal.tv. Now, if you're interested in starting your own podcast, join me in Podcast Your Passion. I'll take you through my 8-week course where I'll mentor you to build a world-class podcast. I'm only taking on a small group of people who want to share their passion through broadcasting, where I'll have you up on iTunes and YouTube within weeks so you can podcast your passion. Click on the link below for more information.